Hey, what's good? When you start getting into understanding politics and even talking politics with other people, you're going to hear this argument that the US is not a democracy, but a constitutional republic. In this video from Turning Point USA, it's going to help us understand the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic and kind of which one is the US. I'm going to be working on some warm-up sketches before we get into it. Remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes I think would look good on you. Let's go. And yeah, I understand some of you guys have issues with Turning Point USA, but I like to listen to everybody. I like to collect information, cut through the BS, and then think to myself, who do I want to be as a person, as an artist, as a leader, as someone who speaks out? Someone who likes to talk things through. I listen to everyone. So let's get into this Turning Point USA video. The difference between democracy and constitutional republic.
This is not just a crisis of Roe. This is a crisis of our democracy.
I mean, they are quite literally trying to dismantle democracy.
Our democracy is what is at stake.
Protecting our democracy.
And the greatest democracy on earth.
Our democracy.
Our democracy.
Our democracy.
So the rest of us can continue to live in a democracy.
Almost assuredly, you've heard claims from critics on the American left that
aspects
and outcomes of our political system are undemocratic. This tends to happen when, for instance, a new law or judicial ruling is not supported by popular opinion, or when a politician is elected by winning the electoral vote, but not the popular vote.
Get rid of the Electoral College and everybody.
The basis of these claims is essentially that a democracy should reflect popular opinion in almost every respect. But it's worth asking, is that what a democracy is designed to do? A democracy is a political system in which the people have an electoral say in the legislation. By that definition, the definition, giving the people an electoral say is what a democracy is designed to do. And that electoral say means that popular opinion is an important factor in the governance of a democracy. But if popular opinion was the only factor that mattered, that wouldn't be democracy. That would be pure majoritarianism. With pure majoritarianism, popular opinion dictates that whatever the majority want, they get. And that might sound fair, unless you happen to have heard of history, which is replete with instances of majorities bulldozing the rights of minorities on the basis of race, religion.
Kind of like what's happening right now? No?
Ideology, geography, it goes on and on. Man's capacity for abusing his fellow man knows almost no bounds. But perhaps you're not familiar with history and you still think pure majoritarianism sounds like a good idea. After all, what could be bad about a political system governed solely by popular opinion? Popular is right there in the name. But the problem is, so is opinion. And if you've ever met anyone with opinions, well, you know that opinions can get messy. They change. Sometimes they change rapidly and significantly. Sometimes they change and then change back. And sometimes they are based on misinformation, lies, or even malicious propaganda. If pure majoritarianism
we're seeing all of that today too,
becoming a weapon with which to commit gross human rights violations, it's still an engine for chaos, generating cycles of debate that never actually settle on anything, or worse yet, a tool to be manipulated by malicious forces. A flimsy raft tossed around the sea by the winds of popular opinion and waves of treachery. And to be fair, it's hard to imagine that critics on the left are actually advocating for pure majoritarianism. It's not difficult to understand its perils and to appreciate that in order to avoid being tossed around by popular opinion, a democracy must be fashioned into a more seaworthy vessel.
All right, so elections are majority, how'd she say it? Majoritism? Whatever she called it. Elections are that. You get the most votes, that's the person that goes in, right? This is where you have to be very careful with who's playing semantics, because a constitutional republic is a democracy. But the constitutional republic, from what I understand, and she's ducking and dodging, constitutional republic, what she's saying is it helps the not majority, but if the majority of the people are voting for something, you don't think that the majority should get what they want? You know, that's what voting is for. She's ducking and dodging, but like red states that that don't have as many people, their votes count more than, say, someone here in California. So this is the minority. Her point of view is coming from a minority that is trying to keep the majority, or the minority being ruling over the majority, which to me, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But again, this is like red states trying to stay in control, trying to stay relevant, and blue states, like taking a look at somewhere like Illinois, where if it wasn't for Chicago, Illinois would be a red state. But the economic engine of Illinois is Chicago, and the population of Chicago is diverse. And because of that, understanding and your exposure to different cultures and things like that makes it a lot less scary. But folks that this young lady represents, or the point of view that she represents, is one of her point of view comes from someone who has had power and wants to keep it, but doesn't want to live amongst the diversity. The more diverse you are, the more diverse your friend group is, the more likely you are to vote Democratic, because you understand the power structure that's happening, and the people, the minority, and this has been happening for a while, the minority, the red states, ironically, are welfare states. But those red states, they're trying to keep power. And so obviously they're going to say constitutional republic because it benefits them. But once the blue states start working together and taking over more companies, and their say is a little louder, and they want to take the power away from the red states, I bet you any amount of money that the red states are going to say, hey, the democracy, blah, 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 blah. Our voices should count too, you know? So it's a mess. But a democracy and a constitutional republic, it depends on who's playing with the words. That's all it is. It's basically the same thing, but a democracy, Democrats want to hear from anyone and everyone who is being controlled by this government. And a constitutional republic, they're trying to say that you elected this person, so this person gets the say-so.
What kind of vessel? Is it a gondola, a cutter, a battleship? That's where the real disagreements take place. The ship known as the United States, the USS US, was fashioned by the Founding Fathers, who started from a historically rare place. They weren't taking over an existing government, They were creating one from scratch. They could
Right.
choose any political system, and what they chose was certainly a democracy. But with all the
There.
rudders and armaments the founding fathers put in place, our political system might be more fully described as a constitutional republic with democratic representation. To understand,
You see how they get lost in the weeds? Both of those things say basically the same thing. A democracy and a republic are basically where there's no king, there's no rich dude. Well, this is where it gets funny. There's not one rich dude that's making all the decisions for everyone. It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be you hear from everyone, and then these people are our representatives. So they go and they say, hey, this is what all my people are saying. And then say a representative from California meets up with someone from Georgia or meets up with someone from Utah, and then they see if they can work together. And then this is what my people are saying. Oh, yeah, this is what my people are saying. And then they make rules off of the feedback that they're getting from us. We pay taxes. These people work for us. You're supposed to do what the hell we are asking you to do. But then you have people like Ted Cruz that are like, nah, I got this. And what that boils down to is you have a certain group of people who are power hungry, and they don't care where the power comes from. If it's in the Senate, if it's in the House, even if it's in their own household. People want power. There's a certain amount, or there's a certain type of person that wants power, no matter where the hell it comes from. And it's just not like that. Oh, and the constitutional republic. The reason why we have a constitution is to make it clear, these are the rules. This is how we're going to get down. If you want to live in this country, this is how we're going to get down. And it's a constitution. It's not a person. Because as we can see, people can lose their shit, and they can wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and they can make all kinds of dumbass decisions just because one day they just decided to try tariffs. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is getting dragged. He ain't hungry. He's got money. He's not worried about prices of eggs. He's not worried about prices of cars. As a matter of fact, he said last week he was going to go and buy a Tesla. Can you guys go buy Teslas? Can you guys fill the gas tank up? Can you guys afford eggs? And you guys are letting this maniac out here making all kinds of weird-ass decisions that it doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit you at all. And you guys are like, yeah, thank you. I want some more. I want some more mistreatment.
exactly what that means, we'll break down the constituent parts. We'll start
All
with
right, let's go.
republic. From the Latin res publica, meaning public affair, a republic is basically the type of government we have, one that is by and for the people. The alternative would be a country that is privately held or the property of its rulers. We've already discussed the democratic part. By virtue of the fact that we, the American people, are given an electoral say in our legislation, the United States is a democracy. But when we say democratic representation, we are specifying that the United States is a representative democracy, as opposed to a direct democracy. That's because our electoral say comes from the fact that we vote on who represents us in both the legislative and executive branches,
Yeah,
where
pick
laws
your
are
fighter.
made and enacted. This is one of the many mechanisms the founding fathers put in place to protect us from being tossed around by popular opinion, in that upon being elected, our representatives have the autonomy to make their own decisions. We get to choose who is making decisions, and we have recourse if we don't like their decisions, because our representatives must regularly run for re-election. But at the federal level, we, the American people, are not making decisions about legislation. Of course, at the state and local levels, there are instances in which we engage in direct democracy by voting on various referendums.
Because it's a gross misappropriation of funds
The founding fathers designed our political system to be more adaptable to popular opinion as we move from the federal to the local level. Smaller populations can get more specific in crafting laws to meet their needs. Because if a local government begins to become something that we find disagreeable, we have the option to move. That's true of state governments too.
Home prices, that's the big driver. It is causing tens of thousands of Californians to seek out new places to live right here in the Lone Star.
Pay attention to all this silliness. People bag on California so much. There's a bunch of people, Californians, moving to Texas, sure, but there's a lot of people moving out of Texas coming to California. Same thing, they're going to do the same thing with Florida. They're going to do all that bullshit. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in California. I'm from Illinois. I've traveled all over the place. California's dope. California's dope. I live here because I choose to.
It's a brilliant application of the free market concept, allowing state and local governments to compete for businesses and populations. But because there is only one federal government, anything done at that level will affect every American. That is why, if local governments are designed for quickness and maneuverability like a speedboat, the federal government is designed.
And this is a part where the point of view becomes important, because they're saying the lower you are, the more local you are, the more power you should have over that community. That's why it doesn't make sense to me when people like this talk about the president and giving the president so much power. The president has way too much power. All of that power, especially at the federal level, a lot of that needs to come down to the states. Because then what happens is you end up getting what we have now. Trump is such a wonderful test for our country because we're learning so many different things. One, you have to put everything in writing. And even if it's in writing, you have to make sure, because they're going to be ducking and dodging. They're going to be pretending not to hear or read the thing that judges have been telling them, right? Not to mention, what does the federal government, with the exception of helping out when disasters happen, if anything happens in Texas, in Florida, in California, because now climate change and shit is happening, the federal government should be there to help the state. The governor should be the main point person.
To be slow and heavy. Changing its course is difficult, taking tremendous time, energy, and willpower. One example of this is the filibuster. Critics on the left love to point to the filibuster as an example of our political system being undemocratic, pretending like it's unconscionable that there would be a procedure.
Pay attention to how she's being all
designed to
facetious
delay
and stuff.
and prevent the legislative process.
We've got
To
to
prove
end
her
the
point.
filibuster and let majority rule.
But truly, it's only pretending, as evidenced by the untold number of times the left have used and defended the filibuster.
This is both sides. This is where Turning Point USA and all these knuckleheads, they only give you the one side to get you guys all triggered and pissed off at the left. Everybody does it. Everybody complains about the filibuster. Everybody says that the wall needs to be built. All the things until it's time to do that work. And then things shut down.
Opportunity to talk a bill to death gives those with a minority viewpoint a voice in the Senate, maybe the most straightforward hedge against pure majoritarianism. But there is also a hedge against the minority cajoling the majority, because with 60 votes, a filibuster can be broken. In other words, if there is overwhelming support, a supermajority, the USSUS can be turned. But thanks to procedures like the filibuster, our political system doesn't flip-flop legislation every 4 years, undoing and redoing the same things in a perpetual cycle of pettiness. It's important.
But again, isn't that what's happening today? You got your boy up here. He's tearing things down and doing all kinds of... We've already crossed those bridges, son. If you want to optimize, if you want to move team members around, if you want to buy new computers, do whatever it takes to make it more efficient, do that shit. But we are fighting fights that we've already learned. How many times do people have to say tariffs don't work? How many more pieces of proof do you need that it's a silly thing? I don't know many people, and we're watching Turning Point USA. We watch everything on this channel. We watch everything so we can figure things out. How many times does someone have to say tariffs are dumb? They shouldn't exist. How many times do we have to say hiring people with a minority background needs to happen in order to have a more diverse government? It's not just trying to get more money into those communities. It's not just that. We need way more diverse points of view in the government. What does Trump, a rich white dude whose parents gave him everything, what does he know about being a poor brown kid from the streets? Nothing.
To understand, though, that just because state and local governments have more flexibility, there are limits on what they can do. And that's where the constitutional part of constitutional republic with democratic representation comes in. The idea of republics and even democracies predates our political system, but the Constitution of the United States marks an innovation of thought. It's the Founding Fathers' most important contribution to societal evolution, laying out the ideals that exist at the foundation of this nation. Fundamental rights that precede the formation of any government, and that cannot be taken away. Federal.
And one of the bigger points here is you have the Democrats who want, and they might be going too wild, like, I understand what they're trying to say with like IDs and voting IDs and all that stuff. I get it. You don't want just anybody doing that. But what the Republicans are doing are they're cheating their way through to not let many people vote at all. They only want a certain kind of person to vote. Back in the day, it was rich landowners who just so happen to be white. These days, it's kind of the same.
Legislators, as well as state and local governments, aren't working on a blank page. The Constitution hands them a coloring book, and if they color outside the lines, it's the role of the judicial branch to correct their work. This is why
and that's what's happening these days. That's what's happening these days. Like the judges are like, bro, you can't do this. You can't send this person to El Salvador. He's not from there, and he's not a gangster. But then you have this administration that is hell-bent on breaking shit.
That the Supreme Court's recent decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization is unconstitutional is totally incorrect. The Supreme Court justices are never supposed to be guided by public opinion, which is why they are appointed, immune from the concerns about having to run for re-election. Their job is to uphold the Constitution, regardless of public opinion. In the case,
so even though it was in law, Roe versus Wade was in law, and the other one, because the follow-up one, I think it was the important one. Roe versus Wade was in law. All these ladies had freedom, or not even freedom, bodily autonomy. All these ladies had bodily autonomy. And it was in the law, but because some hardcore Christians with a little bit more money, they went in and they started doing all the crooked shit. And here we are. Now we have a bunch of ladies and a bunch of families are upset. When it comes to majority rules type of stuff, yeah, I think there's something to it. Because something tells me that the majority of the people have maybe done some conversing, maybe they've done some research, maybe they've done everything that they need to make up their mind on a woman's bodily autonomy. But yet, because a small group of people decided that, nah, that's not how we want it, people from Turning Point USA don't see a problem with that. They don't see a problem with the majority of the people that want a certain law to be left alone. Those guys thought, nah, we're going to go ahead and change this.
Dobbs, the Supreme Court found that the courts that ruled on Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey overstepped, acting as legislators and writing law. They corrected that error by returning the issue of abortion to the state level. And if Americans truly believe that abortion is a right, there's recourse for that. A supermajority of representatives in Congress could pass a constitutional amendment making abortion the law of the land. Such a notion certainly did not belong to the Founding Fathers. It would have been unthinkable. But they had the humility and foresight to understand that the morals of their day might not be the values of tomorrow. The political system they designed is made to moderate between the countervailing concerns of stability and popular opinion, while always protecting our fundamental rights. Thomas Sowell said, "There are no solutions. There are
That was
only
a done deal,
trade-offs."
though.
Critics
That was
on
a
the
shady
left should
move.
exercise some humility and foresight of their own by trying to understand the wisdom behind the trade-offs the Founding Fathers made when fashioning this ship. It seems they recognized that wisdom when the filibuster, Supreme Court, Electoral College, or our system of checks and balances work in their favor. But it's worth a reminder that it is the functions of our political system that make it democratic.
She talks a lot of
not
shit.
the
She talks a lot of shit, but your side does that too. As a matter of fact, Ben, what's his name? Ben Shapiro, who is also part of Turning Point. My boy loses his shit whenever he doesn't get his way. Facts over feelings until the facts affect your feelings.
But if they still want to claim that our political system is undemocratic, the question becomes, what is the superior alternative? Clearly, it's not a monarchy or a dictatorship or pure
Getting money out of
majoritarianism.
politics,
And
that's a
if
good
you
step.
think pure majoritarianism is bad, a European parliamentary system where a political party with a quarter of the popular vote makes decisions for the entire country is no better. Our federalism ensures that people in New York don't have to live under the laws that work for Wyoming, and the people in Wyoming don't have to live under the laws that work for New York. And that's certainly preferable to Canada's system, in which the country is governed by 3 cities. If nothing else, the proof of the Founding Fathers' wisdom can be found in the fact that the United States isn't just the longest standing constitutional republic in the world, it's the most badass battleship the seas have ever seen.
Emphasis on the battleship. So yeah, that's the discussion. That depends. For me, okay, it's a constitutional republic. We need something without feelings and expectations and greed. We need something, and that's the Constitution. That's why it's important. You need a constitution because the Constitution doesn't have feelings and it doesn't have mood swings and it doesn't have anything. It makes everything crystal clear. You can do this. This is against the rules. So when it comes to these folks saying, oh, it's a constitutional republic, number one, constitutional republic is a subsection of a democracy. Democracy is the people rule themselves, right? Government of the people, by the people. However, we bump into people like this and her group of friends that they think that they know better than you, and they think that their way is the best way, and a lot of times it's based on Christianity and all that stuff. But what if you're not Christian? Your rules don't apply to me. Let me clear that up. I'm a Christian. I let the rules of Christianity affect me in my decision-making process. I try to be a better person by letting that influence me. But I'll also watch things from like Turning Point USA, and I'll learn from what they're trying to say. But for the most part, they're hiding it. They're hiding the fact that they want to control you. They want to take things away from you. Is that truly a democracy? So when people say this is not a democracy, what they're saying is You being the minority in this whole argument, red states and people that think this way, is a minority. The majority of this country, time and time again, has said we're a democracy of the people, by the people. We have a constitution. You have to play within these rules. But then it's folks like this, folks like Trump, folks like Elon, that like to push the boundaries. And because it's not written down, they'll push it and they say, I didn't break any rules. There was no rule. That's where the word norms comes in. There's norms that we do. There's normal shit that we do to get through the day to make things happen. Does it have to be written down? Up to this point, not necessarily. Everyone goes and they do the thing and it's been in practice forever and la 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 la. Now, again, the good news with working with someone like Trump and Elon, we now know that we have to write everything down. Because these guys, they'll do whatever it is to push the government into doing whatever they think that that they want it to do. And for some of these business people, they will affect government or they will push government in a way that benefits them. They're not really worried about you. They just need you to show up on Monday morning, 8 a.m., slide your little card, and go to work. That's what they're looking for. They're trying to say, don't worry, we got this. In a democracy, it has to be a, no, we got this. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come hang out with me, watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button and then click the little bell and change that so it says all. That way, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.
Coconut Justice.